From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Summer sweet corn is looking good down south.
Really high yields, Yields is good, the quality is good. We're having really good.
But will it be able to find a market as heavy rain continues to fall from remnants of Hurricane Beryl? Others try to beat the heat without electricity. And could land values be the secret sauce this year when it comes to profitability on the farm?
Land has been an exceptional asset to own over that period of time.
We're crunching the numbers right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Put Pioneer brand corn's exclusive genetics on your team. Win with higher yields and industry-leading traits. Pioneer brand corn, your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The grain markets are floundering as summer weather fails to convince the trade of possible supply shortages. And that has economists forecasting negative returns for both corn and soybeans. University of Illinois ag economist Scott Irwin posting his latest calculations on X via Farm Doc Daily. Now this is based on potential crops in Illinois with an average yield of 227 bushels per acre for corn at a price of $4.50 when factoring in costs and a $359 per acre cash rent. The farmer return is negative $110. However, returns are positive if there isn't a cost for land. Now, just 2 years ago, farmers could expect a positive $332 return due to higher prices. Now, on the soybean side of things, with a yield of 72 bushels per acre and a price of $11.30 per bushel, returns are forecast at negative $57 per acre. Irwin admits this is just a starting point and every farming situation is different. However, he says, quote, unless something dramatic happens on the supply side and soon, the great bull run of corn prices that started back in August 2020 is over, end quote. So what does this mean for land values? AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us. And Michelle, is there any sign yet that the lower corn prices are hurting the land market?
Clinton, a lot has changed in the ag land market in the last 12 months. While experts say the market is showing resilience, there are some signs that land values are starting to cool off after 5 years of unprecedented strength. There are many factors contributing to that, including lower grain prices. Ag land values have seen unprecedented strength in the last quarter century. However, with the reset in the grain market, experts with Farmers National Company say the market is showing signs of settling. While the land bubble hasn't burst, there are single-digit decreases in specific areas like the eastern Midwest or in the West where there are irrigation water concerns.
Over the past 12 months, we've definitely seen a change in both volume and value. And across the industry, where other real estate companies are seeing the same thing, that they're maybe anywhere from 20 to 25% down in total listings. And the value of those listings have definitely settled and in isolated cases have even declined.
Shadig says the market value of land will adjust according to the profitability potential, and there are several factors currently creating negative pressure in that area.
But now we have, especially what's happened in the last 12 months with increases in interest rates and inflation and increased input costs that have really affected profitability in general.
While farmers may not see the record sales of the past few years, he's still optimistic about land being a great investment. This is a fairly normal pattern for values, which have stair-stepped but overall appreciated over the last 25 years.
But when we look at what's happened since the year 2000 or 1999 to today, we've seen some great incremental growth in land values to the tune of about 4.5 times what it was 25 years ago. So again, land has been an exceptional asset to own over that period of time.
He adds there is strength in areas with strong competition and supply-demand scenarios, and there's a great deal of cash available to bid up the right type of land in the right location. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Now, some farmers in Nebraska may be wondering if they'll even have a corn crop this year. Take a look. Several fields in the central portion of the state were hammered by hail. Storms passing through the area over the weekend with 70-mile-per-hour winds in some places, along with golf ball-sized hail. Kent Getz of Morgan Genetics traveling through one of the hardest hit areas, Eagle Grove, which along with hail saw about 5.5 inches of rain. Portions of the Midwest and Great Lakes are now dealing with what remains of Hurricane Beryl. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has a look ahead for us.
Yeah, the remnants of Beryl continue to move across the United States. Actually had a number of tornado warnings both on Monday and Tuesday associated with that remnant system. You see that yellow contour, that's a 15 to 40% chance of some flooding back into Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and then up towards the northeast on Wednesday. This will start to shift back up farther into the northeast as we get into Thursday. And back out to the west, pretty quiet, 5 to 15. And in the wake of Beryl, that tropical system, looking at ridge of high pressure building across the United States, temperatures going back up. Widespread rain and severe weather coming down. Now, as you go into Friday, more of an East Coast system. Some of the remnants from that system will still be around. But we're also going to be pulling in some moisture off of the Atlantic. That's why this 15 to 40% contour comes down here into North Carolina, Virginia, and back up into parts of New Jersey and New York. And something worth celebrating, MKC sharing this photo. Check that out. Look at Barbara. As she's celebrating her 90th wheat harvest. She stopped by the cooperative's Talmadge elevator in Abilene to celebrate with her granddaughter, who is a counter and scale specialist at the elevator. Congrats again, Barbara. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
Happening now, the cleanup is underway from Hurricane Beryl after it hit Texas Monday as a Category 1 storm, knocking the power out for millions of people. But as Laura Aguirre reports, millions are facing another threat, dangerously high temperatures without electricity.
I went outside to look for it, and I saw it. It was coming.
Coming at him, a tornado fueled by Beryl's powerful winds in Benton, Louisiana Monday.
It sounded like a train, like a big freight train was right on top of you.
The freight train of Beryl roared ashore into Texas Monday after a long and deadly trek through the Caribbean and Mexico in recent days.
It happened like super fast as I was going downstairs to check on my son. That's when I heard the big crack.
Haley Laredo's mother-in-law is among the multiple storm-related fatalities in Texas and Louisiana, killed when a tree crushed the Laredo's home in Houston.
It really had my heart racing because there was a lot of unknowns. I did not know his whereabouts.
Tom Webb's father, one of the lucky ones, narrowly escaping a similar fate when a tree smashed his home in Jasper County. Beryl's winds also causing widespread power outages, leaving millions of people across Texas sweltering in oppressive temperatures, according to poweroutage.us. The Houston area especially hard hit.
We will get your power on as quickly as possible.
The city's mayor says thousands of additional power crews are mobilizing to bring customers relief, and several cooling centers in the state are now open. Meteorologists have the record-setting triple-digit heat wave continuing from Texas up through the western U.S. until week's end. They're also now tracking post-tropical cyclone Beryl through the Midwest and Ohio Valley, bringing with it the threat of tornadoes and heavy rain in the hours ahead. I'm Laura Aguirre reporting for AgDay.
Investigators are looking into what caused a massive fire at a hen-laying facility in California. It's reported 170,000 hens were killed in the fire at JS West Hatchery in Merced County. The fire happened over the weekend. When crews arrived on scene, they saw heavy smoke and fire coming from the 50,000 square foot facility. 2 firefighters were said to have suffered from fatigue while fighting the blaze, but recovered and had no injuries. As more cases of avian flu are detected in cattle, work is continuing to find a vaccine for humans. Now, Moderna is saying it has secured a $176 million from the Department of Health and Human Services for late-stage clinical trials starting next year. It's aimed at targeting multiple influenza strains, including the current H5N1 strain. Meanwhile, results from Moderna's early avian flu studies are expected soon. There have been 4 cases of the virus in humans, the latest we told you about yesterday in Colorado. However, experts continue to say the risk to humans is low. As for the virus in cattle, USDA says there are 140 total cases in herds in 12 states. Soybeans continue their double-digit run into the red. We'll break down Tuesday's trade next in Markets Now. And later, it's corn. We're off to Georgia, where sweet corn growers are bringing in the harvest today in the country. A parent company to Google is getting rid of an Agtech subsidiary under its umbrella. The company is Mineral. Now, Mineral's CEO saying the company will no longer be with Alphabet, but that its technology will live on inside of agribusinesses where it can have maximum impact. Mineral was founded back in 2018. It was part of the moonshot factory of Alphabet. Mineral helped develop and build an image database of 17 crops in every stage of growth in several environments. It also created a 4-wheeled semi-autonomous rover to collect data from fields. Corn made some small gains while soybeans sunk. AgDay's Michelle Rook lets us know if corn has finally turned a corner in markets now.
A mixed to lower day of the grains on Tuesday. Rich Nelson is back with us with analysis from Allendale. And Rich, let's talk about the soybean market. Some new lows for the move, some 3-year lows. So the funds have been selling there. Is this all about weather?
I think at this point that certainly is the case. We've seen these crop rating numbers, and ratings are not really a good model for yields at this time of year for soybeans specifically. But a ratings model would imply we're at trend yields, maybe likely higher. Trade is noting, of course, the Eastern Corn Belt will see some very good rains in the next few days. So the market is still trying to price in this idea of new crop ending stocks in that 450 to 500 million bushel range. So we are nearing finally that economic value point if we do have trend yields.
And so let's talk about that. Where do you find support here on the charts for beans? Are we getting close?
As far as the chart support, we've got to point out some very ugliness with the chart argument here. We're in a downtrend, we're making new lows, and we're closing near the lows with confidence. So at this point in time, we don't really have a nice picture story here from the chart perspective. I will say, though, from an economic value perspective, if you move these stock numbers to our number on new crop is 465 million bushels, you are talking an economic value on November soybeans right in that 1060 to 1080 range. So in frank speak, we're almost at that economic value from fundamental numbers here.
Yeah. Corn and wheat trying to hold on to some fractional gains going into the close on Tuesday. But Rich, we ended well off our session highs because of the soybean market pulling them down.
I do think so. And keep in mind here, the corn and wheat markets, they do have a little different story than soybeans. Soybeans is not just a question about trend yields or not. It's also concerning the fact we have light concerns about domestic crush. And certainly for the export side, that's a pretty serious, well-known issue. For corn and wheat, we've got to make some clear admissions. We don't have that demand consideration as far as a negative issue. For both corn and wheat, export sales are quite strong and will be an offset to some of the higher stock numbers posted, or higher production numbers posted on this coming report.
Thanks so much, Rich Nelson with Allendale. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
To talk to Rich Nelson one-on-one, call 800-262-7538.
Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
As we look at that precipitation forecast, no surprise here as we put this into motion, a swath of heavy rain working through Michigan up into Canada, but also the Northeast over the next 24 hours, but also parts of the East Coast. Now what's going on is we have the remnant system, the remnants of Beryl working to the Northeast, and then a ridge of high pressure trying to develop back over Tennessee and Kentucky. So you get kind of the moisture, the heaviest rain up around this little circle that is going to continue to strengthen and then work kind of retrograde a little bit back here towards the west going into the weekend. So as we put this into motion, not for the next 24 hours, but for the next 7 days, the heaviest rain will be felt in parts of the East Coast down into Florida. And then, of course, what we just looked at over the next 24 to 48 hours back up with the remnants from Beryl. Pretty quiet and hot over here towards the west coast. Let's go talk more about that using the jet stream. You got a weak trough that's going to carry a lot of that Beryl moisture up to the northeast and then back out to the west. There's that ridge of high pressure that once again is going to dominate parts of the west coast, leading to some very hot temperatures, possibly into the hundreds in parts of Montana by Friday and Saturday with this kind of pattern setting up. So really not much in the way of relief from extensive rainfall or cool air, as again, we talked about this yesterday. The jet stream is going to try to dip south next week, next Sunday and into Monday, but a lot of that energy is going to be staying back up here to the north, which means a quiet pattern setting up in and across the United States. A typical summertime pattern that we are seeing after going through some very wet and turbulent weather regarding Hurricane Beryl. So this is again on Sunday and into Monday. There's that piece of energy, that cooler air that's going to try to move through. But for the most part, we're looking at quite the time period with dry and hot weather for the United States. We'll start off in Montana. That is a high of 101 degrees. Sunny skies, low of about 63. New York, you got some thunderstorms, high about 74 degrees in Canton, 65 with that low. And then Elk Plain, Washington, 89 degrees.
Grab the butter and bring the pot to a boil. It's sweet corn season. We'll stop by Harvest in Georgia today in the country. Pork exports are continuing to show strength, but new numbers show they have dipped to below last year in both volume and value. The U.S. Meat Export Federation supplying new numbers. It shows May pork exports totaled more than 251,000 metric tons. That's down 4% from a year ago. Value came in at $715 million, down 2%. Now, the group says shipments to the leading market right now, which is Mexico, were below last year's large volume, but we're still trending higher in value. Exports increased year over year to South Korea, the ASEAN region, Central America, and Colombia. Now, the pork industry is keeping an eye on the avian flu outbreak in the dairy industry. The National Pork Board putting out a news release saying that since H5N1 was identified in dairy cattle, there's been collaboration and communication between partners in the pork industry. The Pork Board said it had been meeting at least weekly with several organizations, including the Swine Health Information Center, the American Association of Swine Veterinarians, and USDA. Now, the group says collaboration is critical in order to be prepared, not just with other pork organizations, but within the barnyard and beyond. Now, so far, H5N1 has not been found in pigs. Hey, it's fun to grow a bin-buster crop, but sometimes it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. That may be the case for sweet corn growers in Georgia this year. We have details next. Georgia sweet corn is having a big season, but there's a catch. As John Holcomb of the Georgia Farm Monitor reports, a bumper crop may not be all good news.
Nothing says summer like fresh Georgia sweet corn, and producers here in the southwest part of the state are hard at work getting this season's crop out of the field and to market. This year has been a good one for producers as the great growing season has led to great yields and great quality.
So far, the growing season has been really optimum. We've had mild temperatures and very few hard rains, so it's going good. Really high yields. Yields is good. The quality is good. We're having a really good growing season.
However, according to Herd, Florida growers have also had a good season, which has caused a surplus in the market, which means they're having to leave some of their crop in the fields unharvested.
Typically, we overlap with Florida some, and usually one or the other of us have production issues, but this year we didn't. They had good corn and we had good corn, so now we're having a marketing problem because we got too much good corn in both places. When we have a bad market, we cannot harvest all the corn, so that corn is destroyed.
Another issue they're dealing with is the cost of their needed inputs, which have skyrocketed the last few years and has inflated their cost of production.
It's corn, so it needs a lot of fertilizer and water, probably more than any other crop.
The weather has also been a concern this spring, as too much rain can take too much out of their soil, and storms, particularly wind, can completely ruin their crop.
If we get the right amount of rain, that's good, but if we get too much, I just said our sandy soil, we have sandy soil, it leaches our nutrients out, so we have to replace every time we get big rains. What worry us the most about the storm system is wind. If sweet corn gets blowed over at any time during its growing season, it generally will not produce a quality year.
Reporting in Brinson for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
And our thanks to John Holcomb and the Georgia Farm Monitor for sharing that story with us. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.